So we'll look at moving data. We'll talk about a stack again. Can we talk about a stack a little bit? What's a stack? It's a way that the processor can automatically save information without us telling it. So every time you use like a jump subroutine or especially a jump subroutine, it's got to know where to come back to, right? When it sees the return. So it automatically saves that return information on something called a stack. And we'll look at that. If the processor can use a stack, then we can also set up a stack that we can use manually, right? And we'll look at that. Storing and retrieving data from the PLC memory, you know, about the move instructions, stuff like that. Numbering system conversion. We know that we are predominantly a decimal person, right? We understand the decimal numbering system. You'll never, I'm not going to say you'll never, I've seen it before, but most keyboards and everything where you enter numbers is going to be in what numbering system? Well, what numbering system on a keyboard you're looking at it? I've very seldom seen it. It's going to be in a decimal numbering system, right? So when you set the speed of a motor, you're going to set it in what? You're going to set it in decimal. When you count, you're going to count in decimal, right? You understand that? Now, even though our processor, even though our application displays information in decimal, the actual numbers themselves are binary, right? You understand that? So if we input from a decimal keyboard, it's going to be in a code called what? What code do we use to directly represent decimal numbers? BCD, binary coded decimal. So all your displays and everything, your HMI pads, if you got a numeric keyboard up there and you enter a number, like a code to log in, it's going to be in BCD, right? You understand that? So we need a way we can, especially to convert from BCD over to decimal and then decimal over, BCD over to binary and binary over to BCD. Moving, copying data and filling files, copying information from one data file over to another. So this is what we're going to be talking about here. So this is some of the instructions we'll be dealing with. I'm on the wrong side of the board. I've been writing on that side. The move instruction we've already looked at. Move and mask we talked about a little bit. So the move, and it's an and mask, by the way. So we can actually mask off information inside a move instruction. We call this a move with mask, which is an and mask, which is probably the most popular mask there is, because that mask does what? It strips off bits we're not interested in. It makes them what? It makes them zero. Our stack instructions, first in, first out. FFU. This is unload a stack, load a stack, set up a stack, copy file, fill information. A bunch of data files with the information we want to do. And these are the two we'll look at. TOD, this does what?
Converts
the binary number converts the binary number into a BCD number so we can send it out and display this information to you. And then FRD converts what? From BCD. And then, of course, radian and degrees. Everybody understands the difference between a radian and a degree. What's a radian? What's a degree? Anybody know? So what's the difference between a radian and a degree? Huh? Huh? Well, no, a radius. 1 radian. So a radian is a length. A degree is a vector. Does that make sense? So if I was to take the radius of a circle and place it around the circumference, the degrees that it occupies would be 1 radian. Does that make sense?
So that's the length of the pi.
No, well, pi. We use pi to figure it out. 2 pi rad. Ever heard of 2-pi rad, 2-pi radians?
Probably.
So what we're talking about, a radian deals with the outside of the circle. So a radian deals with these. It deals with the length around the circumference.
I thought it was
Where a degree would deal with a what? A vector. It deals with a vector, you know. So radians deal with length. So any of our formulas that deals with the actual length of something, the true length of something, we're going to use what? We're going to use radians. And then 2-pi rad, that would be what the circumference is equal to.
Right, yeah, that is what I'm talking
Yeah. 2-pi rad. So if we took 2-pi and multiplied it by the radius, it would give us the what?
the circumference.
Something. So radians deals with lengths, and then degrees deals with vectors, right? 52.7 degrees would equal to 1 radian or something like that. And we're not going to use that, by the way. We don't have a lab. And it's not going to test, I don't think. Index register. So an index register, what we can do with an index register is we can use it simply as a pointer. So what it does, it holds an address for us. What's nice about that address is always there. We have the ability to change it when we need to. On the 1100s, on the 1000s, it's S2 24 or S24 because it's one of those, since this is the only status register we have and we can't have more of them, then we can ignore the S, right? It's kind of like the inputs and the outputs. This is true on some of the PLCs, like on the SLC 500s, and also up to the Micrologic 1000s. But what they've done with the Micrologic 1100 is you don't have the ability to change the index register. It's understood to be 0. So every time we offset on the 1100, we're going to offset from 0. Used to move a word into a specific address, data is placed in another data register. So basically, an index register is a pointer. So move instructions, are we okay here? So what do we have in a move instruction? We have a what? A source. And what can the source be? We can use immediate addressing or any other address. So it could use immediate addressing, it could use direct addressing, it could be indirect addressing, or it could be indexed addressing, or indirect. Yeah, I did say that. Then this, and it's not a move, guys. They call it move. It's technically a copy. Because in Windows, if you move something, what happens? You lose your original, right? You understand? And you end up with your destination. So it's technically a copy, but they call it a move instruction. So whatever 0 is going to be there, wherever we get it from is going to be there. Destination, though, has to be an addressing mode besides immediate. It's got to be an addressing mode besides immediate. Everybody okay? But we talked about this before, right? We've used it in our math instructions, right? This right here would not work with the 1100s that we have because 1100s does not use this S24 register for the index register. So this is what they say. This would be where we could put something into the index register. This is true on the which PLCs, the 500s, and also the 1000s. But none of us are using those right now. So what they're doing here is they're taking whatever happens to be in the accumulator of counter 5, this guy right here, and they're moving it into the index register, which is S24, right? But really it's what? It's S2. Y'all understand? So the book will teach S2, but it's what? The 2 is understood. It's just like outputs, that would be a no, is actually data file 0, right? You understand? And then you'd come up here and then your inputs are actually data file 1. The status register is actually data file 2. Well, these you can't do anything about them, right? You understand? So what does that mean? So when we address outputs, we just say what? Oh, and we don't put the what out there. 0, right? And on inputs, when we say in, you could put the 1 there, but it'll disappear as soon as you enter the address because it's understood. So S24 would be in the index register for a PLC that supports that. So here's the free running clock that we talked about, where you can use the different bits to get different timing without putting across a couple timers, right? And you can see they show us an S4, S1 bit 12, S2 or S1 bit 15. Then the free running clock. But what we don't see up here is a what? What did we just get through talking about? What register don't we see? We don't see, well, we see an S, but we don't see the S24. So the 1100 does not have an index register. But we can still use indexed address, and it's just that we're going to always offset from 0. That makes sense? Yes, no? It does?
Okay. 24.
Yeah, so if I use indexed address, and so if I come up here and say, am I on the right one? Yeah, I am. So if I start off with like B3, let's do this. Let's say move right here. Well, in ours, what would be the address? Right now, the first time through, what would be the address? So the way index addressing is set up is this tells us to use the contents of the index register, and then this tells us right here, it tells us the offset.
So you want to add it.
Yeah, so what we would do is we would take the contents of the index register, and then we would add the offset, and then this would give us the address. So right now, this guy right here would actually be whatever address we specify. That makes sense. Now, what we do with index addressing is that we can use instructions that automatically change the offset for us. So what index addressing does, it gives us the ability to go through like a table. So a table is basically just a list of information. And then that list of information, I could start off here and then indexed addressing. My instruction could automatically, some of these instructions can automatically do what? Go to the next address, go to the next address, go to the next address. And one example we'll look at on these stack instructions that we have, where we can set up our own stack. We have what we call a first in, first out, FIFO stack. What do you think that means? So first in, first out would be like a cup holder. It's got, you just run into a lot. But we come up here and we start dropping these things down, and a cup drops down here. And then we keep doing what? Keep stacking them up. So the first one you put in would automatically come out of there, and then everything would automatically do what? Drop down. Last in, first out, which we call a LIFO stack, works like in some of these restaurants you see a plate dispenser where they stack all the plates on there. Here's the first in way down at the bottom, right? You understand? And you take a plate what? So on a FIFO stack, you take the first plate, the last plate on would be the first plate you pull off. But what happens is what happens when you pull that one off? It automatically shifts up. So once we set up a stack, we can save information in these stacks. We can push them on there, and by the way, we can push information on there, and then when I pull it off, it depends on whether I pull off last in, first out, or first in, last out. Depends on how that information comes on. So if we need to save a bunch of data, and we don't have to specify all of these addresses every time, and increment the addresses all the time, then what do? We can let the stack instructions do this for us. So I could save a ton of data, right? And I set up a stack, and I say, I push stuff on the stack. We don't call it saving, by the way. So putting stuff on the stack, and this came from microprocessors, we call that a push. And pulling stuff off, well, either people call it a push or a pop. They say we need to pop the stack. The microprocessor automatically does this, and it sets up a stack and saves exactly everything that's going on with the last instruction, and then you run your subroutine, right? You understand? And then when it comes back, it'll come back and it'll pick up exactly where it left off. That's using the internal stack that we have no control over. But we have the ability to set up our own stack that we can pull information off of and push information onto. And that's where our indexed addressing is really going to come in. So we use ours on our bit shift left and bit shift right. So I could specify a length of 128 bits. And what it would do is we'd use index addresses. If I said B3:0, and the first address it would use would be what? 0. But once it filled that up, the stack would automatically send you to the what? To the next one and the next one and the next one. And we don't have to specify, it automatically does that. So basically bit shift left, how far could they go with what, 2048? 2048 words, bits we could actually shift with the bit shift left or the bit shift right, and it would automatically go through those words for us because it's using what? It's using what we call a stack. So we establish what we call a top of the stack, and then the processor can manage going through the stack, putting stuff on it and pulling stuff off, right? Of course, we kind of cut out of sequence, but so we don't have to, on the 1100s, we don't have to set up a stack pointer. If you were on the 500s or the 1000s, then you would have to, if you wanted to change the stack pointer, then you could put something else in it. So by default, the 1100s start off with what? 0. And then we offset from 0. Well, so moving mask, are we okay here? So what we have to do is we come up with a mask, and this is on Logic Pro. What we would do with our computer, if I wanted to end So our mass, we usually don't enter in decimal, right? Because that would be really hard. Because if I wanted this mask right there, then what would I have to do? Well, I would have to take this and go, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and I would have to convert it or in a calculator now. You can enter it in decimal, right? You understand? Or we could do what? We could split it into what? Groups of 4s, and then we could use what? F0, 0, 0, but what do you have to end it with to tell, H? And then it'll pop it into decimal, so this would actually be a negative number. And then, so we move, we figure out what we want to strip off, so they're using FF00. So FF00 would be this. This would actually be the mask, right? So that means I'm pulling information from my inputs. They're using input 2. And X means it could be what? So what would happen? What would go to my destination? This would be a what? That would be an X. That would be an X, X, X. I can call these small enough. And these would be what? Zeros. Because this is an AND mask. So the move with mask is an AND mask. So an AND mask, bits we don't want to come through, we put a what in the mask? We put a 0. Bits we want to let come through, we put a what? A 1. And they'll come through whatever they were. So that's why I used the X up there, indicating this could be, if this was a 0, that would be a 0. If this is a 1, that would be a 1. It don't make any difference what these are up here because we've done what? We've stripped them off. Everybody understand that? Move with mask. So what we can do is we can get rid of what we don't want from any place. Here we're getting it from a what? We're getting it from an input port. And where can we put it at? What can the destination be? We could take an input port and send it directly to an output port if we wanted to. We could make the output port take the condition of an input port without going through any logic, without going through anything, right? You understand that? So you've got access to a lot of addresses right here. And we showed you, I don't think I stripped it out and put it in here, but you can change the status register, you can change the input register, you can change an output register, data file, you can change a long data file, you can change a lot of things you could do just by bringing stuff directly in and moving it into whatever data file you want it to go into. And with the mask, FF00 to set the lower bytes to what? 0. Bits in the upper byte have the same state as bits, and you put one module up byte. Okay? Yes, so? Brianna's okay. Okay, here's our stack. So we have 2 types of stacks, right? We have what? First in, first out, and last in, first out. FIFO and LIFO, people call them. You ever heard that? Let's say you're laughing at them. So they're slurring their words, right? So these are acronyms. So what do we mean by first in, first out? And what example did I use there?
The first item, placing the stack and everything.
Yeah, but the cup dispenser, right? Yeah, so we start loading cups. The first one drops down here, and then the rest of them do what? And so this would be the first one I put in, and that would be first in, first out, right? And then the LIFO, I used what example? The plate dispenser, right? So the first in down here would be at the bottom, but this is the way the stack works. So when you go up on that cup dispenser and you pull out one, what happens? It automatically drops down. So what we can do with a stack is we can push stuff out on that stack and then we can pull the information off different ways, right? We can pull it off the bottom one, the first end, the bottom one first, or we can pull the what? The top one first. Storing and retrieving pallets. This is the example they use. A stack of a computer term, a group of consecutive data file words or words. I don't want to. This is just repetition. Placed temporarily in memory or location or in a buffer. So normally a stack is just a temporary location of information you want to save real fast and then do what? Get it off real fast later on. So this is what they're talking about here. So this would be the storage area. So this is the example they use. I like my cup example there. So last in, first out, first in, last out, right? First in, first out.
First out.
Stack grows larger as data registers are placed in the stack. Stack grows smaller as data registers, and these are data files. And these are not actually data files. So this is not good terminology in the book. And these are actually what? These are actually words, right? This guy has undoubtedly don't really understand what a register is. So you got to monitor this stack because it's going to automatically put data in there. You know, so you start off with N70 and then all of a sudden you want to use one and then you wipe it out by a push with the stack, right? So you have to keep up with, you need to make sure you understand the size of the stack. And these are in words, right? You understand? So you might start off with the hashtag N70, but every time you push, it's going to automatically take another one, right? You understand that? So you're going to have to keep up where your stack's at because you could very easily wipe stuff out. So he's using the term what? Push. So the term push is pretty well universal. Push means you're taking information from somewhere and putting it on the stack. Putting it on the top of the stack, right? You understand? So the new information always goes on the wall. The top. It's how you pull the information off the stack would be what makes it a first in or first out, right? And then here he's using the term what? Pop. And I've heard the term pull also, which makes sense. Push and pull. The pop sounds good too. First in, first out. The first item in the stack is the what? First item when we pull or pop the stack. Last in, first out. The last item in the stack is the first item out of the stack when you do a pull or a pop. So push does what?
Take the item.
Yeah, and pops do what? Retrieve. So here's our instructions. So the first in, first out, FFL, that was instruction would be, I used to do what? This would be a push instruction, right? And then this right here would be a what? And this would be a pop. Yeah. And this right here would be a what? Push. And this right here would be a pop or pull. Pop. You like pop better? Yeah. Yeah, but they call it unload, but the term we use, And appeal system stacks are created when, of integer words, double byte, or, the, 1100, I mean, the 1000, if you're gonna deal with a double word, you have to set a bit in the status register. All we have to do, but they've dropped that tendency, right? And they just call these double byte words, what do we call them in this TLC? We call them what? Yeah, long words. And if I'm using a long word, which register would we use? We'd use the L data file. I keep doing what the guy does in the book. We use the L data file for 32-bit words, right? Or 32-bit double words or long words. Data can be transferred into what I need to put here.
Hey, I'm confused, Rich.
Or
Why is a double long word called a double byte? Like, wouldn't that just be a word?
Yeah, so I don't know why he's calling it that. You're exactly right. I just now noticed that thing.
I was like, confused. It's like, 2 bytes only make a word.
I saw the word double and I read it in my mind. I've never heard it called a double byte, have y'all? So we'll have to find out if these deal with long words. So they might not deal with long words. So good catch. How many times have I taught this class? Not as many as Nancy. Nancy was the primary instructor for this class for years. But what I know about PLCs, I should have taught that. Thank you. So we'll see if a long word works. Odds are if we use the L register, if we can't clear the error, it means what? It won't work, yeah. We know words work for sure. So this is an example right here. We can pull this up and run it. Not with RPLC. This is a Logic Pro program. So all the programs that are in the textbook is available with Logic Pro. Like I said, they used to give you a copy of it, but guess what? Yeah, they don't do it anymore. But you can get a permanent license for it if you wanted to play around with this. I think it's like $40. And it's a permanent license. And he'll update it for 5 years. But after that, you still can use it as long as you want to. You just don't provide updates after 5 years. But I can't remember the last time the guy updated the thing. And you can move it between computers. You just have to send the guy an email and let him know you want to shift it over to a new computer. And he'll send you a code. And it'll allow you to uninstall it on one machine and install it on another. So he did that for me. So this is the same instructions as these are last in, first out. So we start off with an offset, right? Understand. So he's going to offset 10, but this offset is from a register we call the index register. But what does the MicroLogic 1100 use for the index register to start off with? It uses the what? It uses the 0. So the big difference between us and the MicroLogic 1000s and the SLC 500 is that we can't change the original value of the index register. Now we can offset it into whatever data file we want to, right? Y'all understand that? But we just can't change what we originally start off with the index register. So we'll always offset from 0. So what we would have to do is we'd have to use this to establish where we want the top of the stack to be. Does that make sense? And remember, we use the B register a lot. We use the B register for internal relays. We use a big data file for internal relays. And a stack can definitely wipe out stuff, right? Because once you push stuff on the stack, if you don't keep up with where the stack's at, it'll just do what? It'll just wipe out whatever data files, contents you have there. So when you use these stacks, you're going to say, I'm going to dedicate 10 words, like 10 words. You dedicate 10 words, right? And you got to make sure that you don't push stuff on the stack that goes over what? 10 words. Because your in register is a very important register. We use that a lot. And what is the in register? Normally we use the in register for what? Normally we use the in register for what? We use it for our signed integers, right? So we use that for our signed integers. So you could wipe out the results of a math operation just by letting your stack do what? Yeah, go too far. And it's going to automatically do that. So when you say push something on the stack, it's going to push it on the stack. And if you meant for it to only be 11 bytes, then you're using the next byte in the integer file for something else, right? You understand that? And you push something else on the stack, what's going to happen?
So you can actually design it just to clear out automatically.
Yeah. Now, maybe, let's see, I might be wrong. Is this the first time I've been wrong? Because I just think, I said, Rich, go back and look at the instruction. So what does it say? So this is our source. This is where the stack's at, right? This is going to be our status register. And we'll look at that and see what's actually there. So this is going to tell us what? Probably if we had a what? A problem. This is the what? Can you read what that is? Link. And then this would tell you the current position that you're in within the stack. So right now we're setting up our stack in B3 with an original offset of 0, right? And then what type of stack is it? First in, first out. The R6 register, these are your control registers. And I don't know, we'll look and see if the PowerPoint tells you what error we get. So what probably happens when we exceed the length, we should get a what? We should get an error. So we're only setting up how many bytes for this, how many words for this guy? 3. And currently we have the 0 position. Yeah, I got it. There on there. My So here's the R6 register. It actually takes up 3 words of memory for every R6 entry in the R6 register we have. Here's our flags. We have an EM, we have a DN, and we have an EU. So let's see if it tells us what these guys do. That's what we're fixing to find out. Empty. So EM tells us when the stack, when you pull the last information off the stack. Can y'all see that? Let me close that. So this is the guy we probably need to watch. Can y'all see what the DN or the done bit is? Just in case the stack is what? Full. Well, that's what we need to monitor. So if you don't monitor that, you could overfill the stack. And then we have EU, enable unload bit is set on the pop to. So this is just every time you put something on the stack. This is kind of like the enable on the counter. So every time you tell the counter to count, the enable flag goes. So these would be the two that we would probably need to do. So the EM would tell us when it's what? Empty. And the DN would tell us when it's actually, the stack is actually full. So we do have a warning when we might do what? If when we can't put anything else on the stack. And where'd I get that at? I need to make sure I put that in the PowerPoints. Yeah, so the PowerPoints don't have that in there. I need to make sure I go in there and pull that out and let you know the status register. So we can set a link, but it's like a counter, if I remember right. So a counter, we set a preset value, right? You understand that? But what happens when it hits the preset value? And you keep counting. It does what? It keeps counting. But it gives you an indication that you what? That you're done, right? And it's up to you whether you use that done bit or not. So this would be the same done bit, but it's not going to be and how would we address the done bit? So we'd start off with what? So here's the load right here. This is the one we would want to monitor, right? And this one down here, we would want to monitor the empty. This one right here, we would probably more than likely want to monitor done. So I would use R6, right? Colon, then which one slash good, then, right? Okay. And of course, you could assign that to a what? You could assign that to a contact. And then that way, when R6 1/DN went true, then this right here could make things happen. So what's the first one? This is the actual location of the stack, right? Oh, sorry, at the top. So your source is where this is what you're going to push onto the stack, right? So this is the original location of the stack. I'm going to run space. This right here would be the what? This will be the length. And then this will be the current position in the stack. So down here on your, this is the status register that we're using. Yeah, well, it's not, it's called a control register because it contains more than status. So the actual things that it actually contains. So word 2 contains what? This is the pointer. Word 1 is the length. Word 0 would be word flag stack. So it's kind of like a counter and a timer. So every counter we set up actually takes 3 words of memory for every counter we set up. And then every timer we set up takes up 3 words of memory. When I say T40, I'm automatically grabbing 3 words of memory inside the T4 data file. So what we do when we come up here and use this guy, then this automatically, for the stack, this automatically sets up these guys right here. So when I come up here and I say, when I come up here and I can't write this, yes I can. This is don't write it. So when I come up and I say R6:0, automatically we get this. Now I could say .0/14. So I could go, you could address that, that long address right there. But what they've done is they dropped that down for us, right? So now I can say R6:0, and then I don't have to specify the word. I can just put a /DN, which is a lot easier, because that way I don't have to specify the what. I don't have to specify the word address and then the bit within the word. That makes sense? So this is what we would use, even though you could address it the other way, right? That makes sense? So R6, we don't call it a status register. We call these what? No, it is a data file, but they're referred to as control registers or control data files. Your book calls them registers, and every time I do that, y'all need to correct me. And the RS Logic, the instruction set refers to these as elements. So they would say element word 2, element word 1. So registers are technically inside the processor. Those are actually inside the processor. So these are not in the processor. These are out here in memory. So these are just data files. So every time I say register, y'all gonna do what? Y'all gonna correct me, right? And I'm gonna say, I wish you'd stop correcting me. No, it's a control register because it contains more. Status is just one part of it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So a status register basically is just flags. It says if it's true or not true or gives us information. So on the unload or the pop instruction, this is the location of the stack, right? So this is where you're going to pull from. But it's automatically been kept up with you, right? And then this is what? This is where we're going to put it at. Of the information you pull. Then this right here would be the register that we're using. And of course, you're supposed to do what? Use the same register, right? So whatever instruction you use to push it, you need to use the same data register when you do what? When you pull it or pop it, right? And this right here's got to match too, right? Yeah. So the length of the stack that you pushed it on there, you'll have to match that. And then this will be the current position, which of course, and what I'll try to do is I'll try to find this program so we can actually see it run. Bring up the V3 register and watch the information automatically be pushed on the stack and then automatically pulled off. So I'll go ahead and take a break and I'll see if I can find this. So this is Logic Pro program. This guy's really, really, really good at what he does. amazing me how good the simulation is, but it does have a few little problems. So what he's doing is he's using the counter. Let me go ahead and clear everything out. We got two reset instructions. One of them is going to reset the counter. That's switch 7. I'm sorry, yeah, switch 7. And it changes the push button. And the other one is going to reset our control register, which is switch 8. Okay, so this should get us started off. So now, both of our load and unload instructions are telling us that the stack is empty, right? So we got it set up for a length of 3. And notice your load and your unload, your push and pop, are using the same status register. They're using the same length. But what we're going to do is we're placing our stack in the D3 file. We're starting off at where? We're starting off at 0. But that's just what we call the top of the stack, right? So what we've identified is we've identified the top of the stack. So what I can do is I can just put a random number into, we didn't clear the outputs. So let's take this offline and we'll use another instruction that we're fixing to use. Go to program, go to offline, and I'll go ahead and insert another rung. And so notice my outputs, when I cleared my register and everything, the output stayed the same. So normally when we start a program, like when you hit the start button of something, we want to make sure all our outputs are in a certain state, right? You understand? So you can use a move instruction. You could take a constant, however you want your outputs to be fed at. You could just set 1s and 0s, anything you want, and just move them into the output every time you like reset or something like this. Here we don't want to move anything in there. We just want to clear them out, right? So what we'll do is we'll just come out here and we'll use as soon as I find it. Now this don't have the drop down, and I don't think this allows you now. So this one don't allow you to that shortcut where you can just change the instruction. So what we're doing is we're looking for an instruction called clear. There it is right there. And so what we'll do is we're just going to clear output. What output are they using? Output 2. And then we'll set it up. So, in fact, what I'll do instead of putting it here, we'll put it up here. So every time we do a reset. By the way, this guy lets you upload the program even though you got a shorted run. Okay, so now what it'll do is anytime I reset my counter, it's also going to clear out an output. So that would be a nice instruction if you just wanted to do, when you started your system up, just make all your outputs go to 0. And if we got time, I can show you where they do this inside the actual programs that run the Festo line. So every time you hit reset, they just move what? They move what they want to into the outputs and puts everything back wherever it's supposed to be, no matter where it was when you ended. Okay, so we just come in here and we'll just, advance the counter. Let's bring up the B3 file. Sorry, guys. So we actually can see what's going on. And we'll put it out here so we can. So we'll just get some counts. And then what I'm gonna do is we're gonna push it onto the top of the stack. So I'm gonna use the FFL instruction, right? And you notice whatever's in the counter went down here. Up here it's in decimal, down here it's actually binary, right? Everybody okay there? And then we can randomly come up here and just do another number. We're just advancing the counter. And then we can do what? It'd been a lot easier to move another input over here, but then we push onto the stack and notice what happened. So this top of the stack stayed stationary and the new information went where? Went here. But it automatically did what?
Girl.
It automatically went to the next address. But what you're doing here, you're specifying the top of the stack, right? You understand? And notice the top of the stack never moves, right? So using index address, and what did it automatically do? It took this and automatically incremented it to the next consecutive address. And then we come up here and we just do another number and then we'll push this onto the stack. So here it is right here. And now it's no longer, the first push that I did, noticed that the empty flag turned off and now we've got 3 and what happened? Now it tells us we're all
Done.
Okay, now what we've got is we've got this information on the stack. We've got 1, 2, 4, 8, 63. We got 63, right? Then we got 48, and then we got 11. We can't have that, right? 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. So this is 16, 8, 24. And this will be 1, 2, 4, 8, 60, 32. This will be 33. So, and where are we sending the information at? You know, see on the pool, what's the destination? Output 2, right? So what we should see is these lights on output 2 respond to the stack. So let's pull it off the stack. So I'm gonna come down here and hit 4. Okay. So what are we using? First in, first out, right? First in, first out. So this was the first thing I put in, and that's the first thing that did what? Came out of the stack. And then we'll come back here and do another pull. And what's going to come out next? Should be this guy right here, right? And notice the stack is actually automatically now doing what? Moving back up, right? You see what I'm talking about? Okay, so here goes 4. So that came out, and then the last one, we'll come up here and pull that one out. And so the outputs are responding. So all I did was specify where the stack's at, where the top of the stack's at. All I did was specify the length of the stack, and then the processor or the program automatically pushes information on the stack and pulls it off for me, right? And I don't have to specify addresses anymore. So we would use this just for temporary storage locations. But instead of me having to go through these addresses, right? You don't understand, it's going to do it what? It's because the stack automatically does it for us. And of course, if this works out, when I come down here and hit switch 7, all the output's clear. Because of this instruction right here, right? So this is a pretty neat instruction. And then I need to reset this one if we stop the count somewhere in the center. Are we okay? This makes sense? Any questions? And to pull the last in, so this is the first in, first out. The last in, first out would work the same way, but when I pulled it, instead of coming, it would do what? it would be go on the stack opposite, right? You understand what I'm saying? Copy. So what do we use the copy for? What does it sound like we're going to do? Yeah, copy from one data file into another. And what do you think the field does? This fills with a pattern. So what we do on the fill instruction, it fills the indicated addresses with the pattern that we decide on. So if I wanted to put all ones in there, I could fill it with FFFF, and I could say fill this number of addresses, and then automatically pop them in there for. And this is consecutive, by the way. So we should, instead of putting one, we should say consecutive data files. I'm just going to put pattern here. I can use these instructions to manually enter files with constant numbers or data from the file. So fill, copy is going to take a number of consecutive data files from one location and copy them into the other. What address mode do you think these guys are going to use? Probably indexed addressing, I would think. So this doesn't show it. Does y'all have an example in your book?
But the field file.
You do?
We got an example of COD and the FRD.
Yep, that's. Y'all got an example of the field? Okay, this is.
But they look like combined.
So here's the field.
So you have to use a
So if we're gonna automatically go through a sequence of addresses, then we're gonna use index addresses, right? Don't understand that. So what's nice about index addresses is I can specify one address, and it automatically, if it needs to, goes into the second. So here's the actual block diagram. We start off with source. So the source could be immediate addresses. So if I wanted to fill a bunch of addresses with nothing but ones, then what I could do is instead of using N7, I could just put ELF, 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 ELF. And what would I have to put it in? Yeah, I have to put an H. This is where we're going to put the information at. But this could be, right now it's 1, but it could be what? Let's say it's 10. Okay. And what it's going to do is it's going to fill automatically. I specify N7:1, but it automatically do what? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It would automatically do that because I'm using what address and mode?
Index.
Index. So what we can do with index addressing is we specify where we want to start at, and then it automatically goes through these things for us. So if I wanted to fill a certain number of addresses with the same pattern, then this is what we use. Everybody understand that? I think I'd have to look at the program. So what does a copy do? So we fill a range of data files with a pattern that we get from somewhere, right? We could do immediate addressing or we could do the other addressing modes. So what would the copy do? Can y'all read this?
Copy or arrange the data from one file location to another.
So what we're going to do here is we're literally going to take this range of data files and we're going to copy the contents into another range of data files. So let's look at that instruction. So this is where the information we can get it from. Copy, we can get it from an output, we can get it from the output of a data file, we can get it from the input data file, we can get it from a B file, we can get it from a counter, or a control register, we can get it from an in file, we can get it from a floating point, we can get it from STI, can look at that, or they can be long words, right? Now the address modes we can use immediate or the source, we can use direct or we can use indirect. That's the three address modes available. So look at the instruction we get from a source, and since we're going to go through two data files, we've got to do what? We've got to use index addressing for both of them. So here you cannot use, so what are we going to do? I'm trying to find my drawing thing. Shift, Alt, draw. So what's this guy going to do? The example that they show. What's it going to do?
Copy from
So the first one, using index addressing N7:0, that's where the information's coming from. N7:1, that's where it's going to. And then this uses a length of what? 1. But if I came over here and used the length of 3, which one of these data files do we have to change? We'd have to change this right here, right?
the original location.
Yeah, this would be the same right now. But if I start at 0 and go to 1 and I say 3, what's going to happen?
We have an error.
So let's say in
You
B7,
don't have a default.
let's say I have like B3A4. And then I take this and then I would copy it into this. So this would end up with what? B3A4. Then it automatically go to this one and it would copy that into this again, right? You understand? Yes or no? I mean, it would automatically go to the next one. So it would take this and it would automatically copy this again. You understand what I'm saying? Yes or no? Yeah. So what we're saying, if I go to 3, I need to change this to 0, 1, 2. I need to change this to what? 3. So the way he said, the way the author here did, they had the source and the destination, one address out of the other. But if I'm gonna copy the contents of 3 data files, then I can't, if I, into the next 3 consecutive addresses, we would have to move that, right? Everybody understand that? So what do we use the copy for? I've never used this instruction, but it's available to us. What would we do this? What does the copy do? Well, what is the difference between the field? I've used the field before, but I haven't used the copy. What would we use the copy for? I'm sorry. What does the field do? What's the difference between the field and the copy?
Copies something from a location, the field, what you want in that location?
Yeah. So the field fills a set of addresses, a set of data files, consecutive data files with a pattern. The copy takes the contents of one set of data files and makes a direct copy into another set of data files. That makes sense? Everybody okay? And what addressing mode does both these guys use? And why? Because it's got to automatically go through what? Consecutive addresses. So that's the power of indexed addresses, is we specify one address and it can automatically do what? Go to the next and go to the next. Data conversion. Conversion instruction used to convert contents of the PLC data files. From one numbering system into another. And of course, the two main ones that we use, the decimal to binary, right? You understand that? That's very important. So this allows us to enter information using BCD, and we'll show y'all what happens if we don't convert this over. The PLC is going to take a BCD number and interpret it as a binary, unless we do what? Unless we convert it, right? So what figure is the program on that thing? I know we got one in there for the conversion. We're in chapter 14, right? So we'll look at some. Oh, here we go. I got one. This is one that I wrote. And we can't blow this up. But what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and use these. We call them phone switches. These are still out there, but what these do, these actually give us a BCD number. So when we come up here and start putting these phone switches, they just go from what? They just go from 0 to 9, and then they stop. But you can see the actual what comes into the inputs is actually what we call binary coded decimal. 1, 2, y'all can see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, and then there's nothing else. So BCD is not a weighted numbering system. We can't do 1, 4, 8. We can't 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, right? It's a what? It's a code. But the problem is my binary, if I come up here and see this, if I come up and do that and I bring this into my PLC, what's my PLC going to see this as? So my PLC is going to say, even though BCD would be this, right? Your PLC is going to see it, and of course in BCD this would be 99, but it's going to see it as a binary number, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. So it's going to see it as what? 128 plus 16 plus 9. When I meant it to be what? 99. So if I tried to do math with this, everything would be wrong unless we had a way for it to do what for us? Convert it, yeah. So let's download the program, then we'll go online. And so we're inputting from 5. So right now I'm putting 99 in there. And what does it see it as?
14.
Yeah. Okay. And then of course, then what we're doing, so switch 0. Let's see if that's right. Okay. So, why didn't something happen? I'm 1. 1/0. Okay, there we go. This is going to move it into this file, right? And notice what happens when I run it through the FRD. What does it do? So I'm going to come up here and do this. We're going to use 2 move instructions. I'm going to move 1. So my first one is seen as this, right? I'm sorry. Let me redo the switch. My first one is seen as what? I'm sorry. The input is seen as what value? 5899. But it's seeing it as what? 22,683. Y'all understand why? Yes or no? 222,681. I'm actually giving it what? Yeah, I'm giving it 5,899. But when I bring that input in, my PLC is seeing it as 22,681. And why is that? It's seeing it as a binary number. It thinks when it gets an input coming in, it thinks it's a binary number. It doesn't know it's what? It doesn't know it's BCD, right? Well, when I come down here, here's this FRD instruction right there, FRD, and that does what? That converts it from BCD to the true binary that it represents. So when I go through this instruction right there, it says it's what? 58,099, which is what it is, right? You understand that? So what this instruction right here gives us the ability to do, it gives us the ability to enter BCD numbers. So now my touch pads and everything can be in the decimal numbering system, and I can bring it into a PLC program, and it converts it over. It takes BCD and converts it over to what? Binary. So your calculator is what?
That would work for mechanical counters too, though.
What's that?
That would work for a mechanical counter.
Yeah, a mechanical counter that counts in BCD. If you had a BCD counter out there, and a lot of counters do that, mechanical counters, not the one inside the PLC. The ones inside the PLCs count in binary. Even though they display in decimal, they're actually counting in binary. And what you've got to learn is a computer can display anything it wants to up here. This is just a bunch of dots. So what it does is it's sending a pattern up here that displays these numbers. So all the math inside your computer is done in binary numbers. even if it appears you're entering a decimal, right? You understand that? And you can actually see this. So it considered that 5,899, it considered it to be a binary number. So it didn't go 1248, 1248, 1248. It went 1248, 16, 32, 64, 128, right? You understand that? 256, 512, and then it converted that over. Well, what this instruction does for me, that would be like you taking that number, converting it to decimal, and then giving the BCD for it. So the computer does that a lot. The PLC, every PLC I've ever had has an instruction like this. Because why? It knows we deal with what number system? We deal with decimal, right? You understand that? The computer loves binary. We love what? We love decimal. So it allows us to enter BCD numbers in, but it considers it, right off the bat, it considers it to be what? A binary number. And then we have an instruction that does what we would do, right? That would convert this over for us. It does it with one whack.
So FRD converts BCD to binary.
Yes. And then the other one, TOD, would do what?
Binary to BCD.
Yeah, so look over here at my display. My display is all confused, right? Understand? Because my display is going to see a number as a binary number too, even though I want to be at what BCD. So we need an instruction if I'm going to send it out to a decimal display, like the speed of an RPM or the motor or a counter. So your PLC's counting, even though it appears to us that it's in decimal, it's actually in what? Binary. And if I was to send that out directly to a BCD display, it would display weird numbers like this. Unless we did what? Unless we had a way to convert it before we did what? Before we sent it over. And I wish I wouldn't be on those phone when I'm up here talking. In fact, that's the note in the syllabus. It's one of the college policies. So if you need to play with your phone, you need to get up and go outside or go out in the hall and do that for you. Because it does bother me. Even though it doesn't bother you, it does bother me. So once we got it into this, then what can we do? Then we can add them together. And then what are we doing? And then we can do what?
Don't convert it back to BCD.
Yeah. And send it out to the
Display.
So everybody okay on these two conversions for us? So it allows us to bring a BCD in, which is first to be what? Binary. It allows you to convert it over to binary. Then we can do math with it. We can do our compares. We can do what we need to do. And then if I want to send it out to a decimal display, we can do what? We can convert it back. Any questions on those two commands? Pretty straightforward. Thank you. This would be, we're not going to do it. So the DEG converts an angle into radians, and converts radians to degrees, and then the RAD converts degrees to radians. So a degree is basically a vector, right? And then a radian is a length.
Outside.
So when we solve for things in electronics, like your formulas, what's the formula? 2 pi what? Rad, yeah, radians. So like we have, if you take AC, we have a formula called, it's solve for X of L, and it's 2 pi FL. So that's substituting for what? For radians. And then to solve for capacitance reactance is X of C is equal to 1 over 2 pi LC. And so what you're doing is you're actually solving for not a vector, you're solving for a quantity that deals with a circle, right? So we use these formulas a lot in AC because AC is generated on a circle. In fact, we say one cycle is equal to 360 degrees. So where would this be? Where it crosses, it'd be at what? 180. Where would this be at? 90. Right. Where would this be at? 270. And this right here would be 360 for one cycle, but it would be what? Zero the next. Yeah. It's just like 12 o'clock midnight. So 12 midnight is the end of one day and the start of the next. So if we get into these guys, we're not dealing with degrees. We're dealing with this, what's actually going on here. So this is why we use gradients on these formulas, because we're actually dealing with quantities. And y'all get into AC. Some of y'all don't have to take AC, but y'all love AC. Anybody had AC? That's a rough class, right?
Uh-huh.
That's one of our harder classes that we do here. Really? I took AC, DC, the same semester. Of course, I'd been exposed to it in the Navy, in my trade that I was in the Navy. So the instructor figured I could do both of them at the same time. But AC it's not only a hard class to take, it's also not an easy class to teach. Because you start dealing with what actually goes on in AC. So is AC and DC the same?
No. They're similar, but not the same.
Well, they're similar into resistors, but when you start adding capacitors and inductors and you start getting those phase shifts in the circuit, it's weird. So guys, we got one more lecture. Y'all need to take a break? Let's take a break. We'll finish up and then we'll be in lab when we come back. First thing, y'all decide when y'all want test 3. We'll finish up tonight. Right now, test 3 is scheduled on the day, on the class before the final exam. Y'all want to move it. We have 1 week. Y'all, okay. We're going to finish this up. So what we're going to do, when we come back Monday after y'all break, we'll go straight away. We'll come in here first, just ask if y'all got any questions. We're going to go straight to lab. We'll go straight to lab unless y'all want to have S3 on. If you want S3 on, then we'll be in lab all day today, Monday. What it will do is it'll give you a whole weekend to study for final test. You know what I said?
That Monday,
So with these labs, Mr. Rich, mandatory, so we come down to the wire.
We need to make it up.
Right
Right now you can do labs in the evening. Unless it was case tonight, you can do labs in the evening. Therefore, what you probably need to do right off the bat is required. Then drop back and think, well,
Yeah, that's what I'm
required.
Not like the other class where it hasn't like.
Well, then it's actually going to have to be required class. You know, you start it. Or just work on one thing. That makes sense. Yeah, motor control, we have, while we have required to have the motor control, that class, it's part of what we call, part of our accreditation, we call it the student learner outcome. So we pay, that's one of our core classes that we take. Are we doing the job that we need to be doing or not? So that's why we had to keep labs in that class. This class, it's not part of it. We don't have any requirement. We went over all the materials, so what y'all want to,
I want to take a check on this.
y'all want to take this, as we get back? Or y'all want to take the money before the final? Or y'all want to take it, all we have to take it, this first.
Yeah, but I kind of want to fresh.
Yeah, but if we take it on Wednesday, then I'll make test 3 available. So what you'll have to do, or take, previous test 3 available, if we do it on Wednesday. If we take it on Monday, so you'll have the whole weekend to study all 3 tests.
Right.
If we take it on Monday, then, take test 3 on Monday, then you'll only have Tuesday to study test 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna do one thing. Let's kind of head for that test on that Monday.
Yeah, and then you got, so they're not gonna finish up in that class early. What class is that?
They're all like that.
I thought it had it. I'll go down the wire in that class.
Well, we're getting 2 certs out of it this time, so.
Yeah, you're getting, you can hydraulics and you're getting, that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we'll probably have to do at this time. What we're gonna do is we're gonna move test 3 to the Wednesday after we get back. The test review is already there, guys. Test review is already up, for test 3. I use the whole test 3. That will be before test 3. So pre-test 2 will be before test 3. And pre-test 3 will be before 5.
Good luck right now.
No, wait, no, there.
Well, sometimes you have to remind me of that stuff. Okay, so y'all go ahead and take a 10-minute break and let's come back and look at sequences. So I'll go ahead and take care of those things right now.